We are going to look at the history of Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, the state radio station, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, shirika la utangazaji la Kenya, from its beginning to date. Some of you people, I like the way young people are encouraging me, especially on recordings that have got to do with historical facts. I keep on saying this step, they keep on telling me this video. I will now tell them that as much as we are referring to Kenya as this country, there was even a time it was being referred to as this colony. So when I talk of this colony, Kenya before 1963 was referred to as this colony. Now, if I have to talk about things which happened before 1963, you'll understand when I talk of this colony. In 1927, there was need for the settlers to monitor what was happening at home, that is England. So, 1927, a company was started which was called East African Broadcasting Corporation. East African Broadcasting Corporation it was what is called a repeater station. A repeater station, meaning that they used to collect the contents of the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, and transmit it to settlers in Kenya. For those of you who have TVs, you'll find that around midnight, when our local TVs have completed their programs, they forward us to international stations. That is what it was happening. Our stations past midnight, they become remitter stations for international stations. Now this East African Broadcasting Corporation, the work was only to collect the BBC radio service and transmit it here. Just like the telephone, your machuma za telephone, it just picks around that place. I hope you understand. So it worked that way in the year 1927, and then the following year, it was felt that we had things in this colony that requires reporting. Yes, a colonial officer or a settler is in one end of the country and another one is in the other end of the colony, not country, but colony. A settler is in one corner of the colony and another settler is in the other corner of the colony. Now they wanted to know what is happening in the other side of the colony. So in 1928, the English service started in the East African Broadcasting Corporation, EABC. Now, when they started that way, those of you who may have been there when KTN started, you'll find that 75% of the time, KTN was broadcasting CNN, but in the morning, they could have 2 hours to show what is happening in Kenya, then go back to CNN around lunchtime. So that is what happened with the East African Broadcasting Corporation in 1928, where they started. They would reach a certain time, then broadcast a few things about the colony, and then continue transmitting the BBC. In 1931, the services were rendered out to a private company. A private company started operating. You remember that time it was a government body, or the government body, the colonial government body. But now in 1931, a new company took over and started running it. The company was called something, I can't remember all the names, but one of the names was Cables. It used to deal with cables. It had offices near Githurai. So it was called Cables, something Cables. Now local natives, wakati tuko naitwa natives, nowadays tunaitwa locals. We could not pronounce the name Cables. And you know, there used to be mafuta ya kupika inaitwa Kimbo. So we used to confuse the name Cables and Kimbo. That is why today, up to today, we have a place called Githurai Kimbo. The Cables company used to be there. So the place started being called Kimbo. We could not pronounce the word Cables. We pronounced it as Kimbo, and that is why the place up to today is still called Githurai Kimbo. And also, again, we had cooking fat that was called Kimbo. Now, Kimbo Cables and Kimbo Mafuta, they pronounced the same, but the spelling was different. Kimbo Mafuta ya kupikia, a company came to Kenya, very different. You remember this Cables is something to do with cables. Is it called Jumia JTL? We have those people who deal with we used to have TVs which used to happen in cables. We have people who bring internet to your house. They use cables. Hizo makamba za simu. But Kimbo, mafuta ya kupika, a company came and started producing fat, and they did not have a name for the fat. The company was called Kenya Industrial Manufacturing Board. K for Kenya, I for industrial, M for manufacturing, B-O, board. So mafuta ilikuwa inatengenezwa na kampuni inaitwa Kimbo, Kenya Industrial Manufacturing Board, na mafuta yenyewe ikaitwa Kimbo. Later hii mafuta ikabadilisha jina, ikajiita East Africa Industries. East Africa Industries in the 90s was bought over by an international company called Unilever. So the Unilever branch of East Africa bought it, and that is why it was called Unilever. Back to Cables in Githurai. These are the people who ran the radio station. Remember, I'm talking of radio station. So in between 1931 and 1953, Cables started running the company, and in 1953, the company started Vernacular programs. It started Vernacular programs, and it was changed from East African Broadcasting Corporation, and they started calling it Africa Broadcasting Service. For those of you who know some law, you know the difference between corporation and service. Now, it changed its name from East African Broadcasting Corporation to African Broadcasting Service. This was to indicate that it was now broadcasting African languages. Remember, 1928, it started broadcasting in English alone. But now it started broadcasting in Swahili and local languages. It opened offices. One office was opened in Mombasa, another office was opened in Nyeri, and another office was opened in Kericho. The office in Kericho was later moved to Kisumu. So that the station in Kisumu would broadcast in Luhya, Luo, Kalenjin, Kisii, Kuria, Teso, Sabaot, of course Sabaot are Kalenjin, and the one in Nyeri would broadcast in Kikuyu, Meru, Embu, Kamba, Borana, Somali. The one in Mombasa would broadcast in Mijikenda. It would also broadcast in Taveta, in Taita and Taveta. I hope you understand. So that is why it was felt that it should be named Africa Broadcasting Service, because it was now broadcasting African languages. But a year later, it was felt that giving it a name of African Broadcasting Service would make it appear as if it is supposed to air Zulu and Igbo, among others. So the following year, 1954, it was changed to a commission. It was called Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. I correct myself. It was called Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Yes, it was called Kenya Corporation, but it was a commission. It was a commission. It was Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, but it was a commission. This is a government parastatal that does it on profit. Once I've said parastatal, I think most of you, if not all of you, understand. So in 1954, it became Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, but it was a commission. Then 4 or 5 years later, in 1959, it was changed to Kenya Broadcasting Service. Why was it called Kenya Broadcasting Service? The commission was broken, the parastatal was broken, and it went back to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting as a department of spreading out information about the government or the country. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting had 2 departments. The broadcasting department was the KBC, the KBS, which moved from Githurai to Harithuku, where it currently is. And the broadcasting. Then we had another broadcasting house, for those of my age, somewhere next to bus station in town. Now the one in bus station in town dealt with print, magazeti, kitu kama magazeti hivi, something that you could read. But when you wanted to listen to what the government was saying, if you wanted to read what the government was saying, you would go to, it was being coordinated near the bus station. Hapo karibu, not far from Afya Center. Ukitoka Afya Center, before you enter bus station, somewhere there used to be, if you go there, ask for broadcasting house, information house, that is where information used to be spread out in written form, in newspaper form. But broadcasting as a TV, as a radio station, and later as a TV, was being done first of all at Githurai Kimbos, then later it was moved to where it is in Harithuku Road. That was 1959, when it was called Kenya Broadcasting Service. It became a service. The difference between 1954 commission and 1959 service is that the commission was made a parastatal, a profit-making body. I think that is when now we started having advertisements in the radio and later TV station, because it was there to make money. But they found that it was better for it to be wholly financed by the government. So it was changed to, in 1959, to Kenya Broadcasting Service. Now you know the difference between corporation and service. Corporation is meant is a profit-making body, but service is something that you do it. It's just like Kanjo. So wamekea nyinyi street light. You don't pay for the street light. It's what the Kanjo pays back. If Kanjo would have said mulipe streets, everybody mungekuwa mnakataa kulipa, and then the street, I think that is one of the examples. So in 1959, as I've said, it became Kenya Broadcasting Service. And then 4 years later, when Kenya attained independence, it was felt that the radio station that is run by the government should air the voice of Kenyans. It should air the voice of Kenyans, and that is why it was changed to the name Voice of Kenya. Voice of Kenya, you have seen how it looks. And the year before, you know, when it was still being called Kenya Broadcasting Service, from 1959, it reached 1962 is when in Kenya we started having our first TV. The TV was in black and white, run by Kenya Broadcasting Service. And then when Kenya Broadcasting Service changed its name to Voice of Kenya, the black and white TV continues being called Voice of Kenya TV. That was 1963. Now, it continued that way and changed its name to Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, the name that it has today, in 1989. Now, what used to happen then is that the radio station used to open at 5 a.m. and then at around 9 or so, it went to school broadcasting up to 12:30. Then we had, somewhere around 2, it went back to school program up to 3:30. That is how VOK used to operate, VOK radio. And then at 4, we used to have news. We used to have news at 4. Then from 4, there's a time they changed the 4 p.m. news to 5, but it was reverted back to 4. So from there, it would continue that way until midnight, when it would switch off. It would be switched off completely. And then, as I said, in 1962, Kenya Broadcasting Service brought in a black and white TV, which was taken over by Voice of Kenya. And this is how the TV used to operate. It used to operate 5 a.m. up to somewhere around 9 a.m. It would be switched off until 4 p.m. when it would be switched on until midnight. Then, and all this time, Kenya, the colored TV was introduced in 1978. And all this time, from 1964, Zanzibar had a color TV. You know about Zanzibar and Tanzania. So Zanzibar, a sub-country of Tanzania, used to have a color TV, but Dar es Salaam used to have black and white TV. As I said, in Kenya we had black and white TV. The first colored TV came to Kenya in 1978. And if you had those who had access to foreign countries before 1978, they would come back with colored TV, but then when they switch on, they see black and white programs. So it continued that way up to today, that we have Kenya Broadcasting Corporation as a parastatal. Now you know it.